Are the Arizona Cardinals collapsing for a second straight season at the end of the season? And what's an acceptable record for the final 3 games of the year? It's Brack. I'm going solo today. It's the Locked On Cardinals podcast.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on? Rise up, Red Sea. It's Brack hanging out with you on another edition of Locked On Cardinals podcast. It's your Tuesday show. No Alex Clancy. He couldn't join us today, but he'll be back in the fold tomorrow. We've got a pretty intense debate going on about Cliff Kingsbury starting tomorrow. Clancy continues to be on the fence, saying that Cliff Kingsbury has no business being the Arizona Cardinals head coach, despite their 10-4 record. I think it's absolutely insane. We'll get into that conversation. Can't wait to do so. We'll start to kind of turn the page on the Detroit Lions loss and look forward to the Christmas game, Christmas night against the Indianapolis Colts, one of the hottest teams in football that's going down. And we're actually going to talk to Evan Sidery of Locked On Colts on Thursday's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Whether you listen on podcast or you're checking us out on YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I want to get into this conversation about, are the Arizona Cardinals, are they collapsing for a second straight season? Have we seen this movie before? Is it a bad sequel to last year where the Arizona Cardinals started 6-3 and they failed to make the postseason? They ended up going 2-5 down the stretch. They go 8-8 and they're on the outside looking in of the playoffs. We'll get into that combo real quick. Also, let's get into Robert Alford's injury. He was added to the IR. Was it a little bit bigger, more of a larger loss for the Cardinals defensive secondary than originally thought of at first? The Cardinals missing Robert Alford. He's on IR, at least for the remainder of the regular season. He would not be eligible to return until the postseason with that pec injury. And an update on a couple key injuries for the Arizona Cardinals, Jordan Phillips and Rondell Moore. And also, what's an acceptable record for the Arizona Cardinals down the stretch? 3 more games left. They've got Indy on Saturday on Christmas. They've got the Cowboys coming up, the afternoon game, the main game on Fox on Sunday in week 17. And then you've got the Seattle Seahawks, who are surging all of a sudden, and the Arizona Cardinals have to, it's the regular season finale. They're taking on Russell Wilson and crew, and that now looks like a huge game as far as playoff positioning, potentially for both squads. We'll see what happens to the Seahawks between now and then, but what would be an acceptable record for the Arizona Cardinals over the final 3 games? A lot of people right now down on the Cardinals. I mean, did you see this where Mikal Bridges, Phoenix Suns star, he tweeted out, and it made a couple articles that he just pointed out the Cardinals stink. He tweeted it out, just Cardinals stink. And I'm just like, whoa, chill, Mikal Bridges. I mean, the Phoenix Suns missed the playoffs for 10 straight seasons. I mean, they were the NBA's just poster child for futility. And all of a sudden, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, and then Chris Paul comes to town. They have the bubble 8-0 run, and they start to turn things around. But before that, Phoenix Suns, they stunk. And the Arizona Cardinals do not stink. They're 10-4. And I'm not one to hover my hand over the panic button just yet. I do think that, Sunday was unacceptable. You never want to lose to a 1-11-1 Detroit Lions team. And then the fashion that they did was just brutal, that they were just dominated in pretty much every facet of the game. But I'm not sitting here saying, hey, let's just launch a Molotov cocktail into the middle of this organization and just blow it up, because that's just ridiculous. I mean, the NFL is hard. The NFL is absolutely hard to win. I mean, I've been watching The Man in the Arena. It's the documentary of Tom Brady and his run, his incredible run from, an relatively unknown guy that was vying time as the Michigan, starting quarterback with Drew Henson, and his rise to becoming the GOAT. And all along the way, you saw tough victory, tough losses for the New England Patriots. A lot of people misremember those Patriots teams. They were in a lot of tight contests, and they were on the winning end of a lot of them, and that separated them from the rest of the pack of the NFL. And they found sustained success, which is nearly impossible in a salary cap league unless you've got consistent coaching and you've got great, GM pulling the strings there. But, the Arizona Cardinals at 10-4, I mean, it is not time to panic. And it is not like, I'm not going to bury the lead here, and I'm not going to just ruin the segment that we're going to talk about their final 3 games, but they're not going to go 0-3 down the stretch either. This is too good of a team when you look at the Arizona Cardinals, which gets into my main topic of conversation today is are they a collapsing team once again? They go 6-3 last season, and then they fall apart. Kyler Murray was clearly hobbled. He had the shoulder injury. He had the ankle injury at the end of the year. He barely competed in the regular season finale. The Arizona Cardinals, they miss out on the playoffs in the final game. They get knocked out by John Wolford and the Los Angeles Rams, the top defense in the league, because they had to start Chris Streveler, Canadian football quarterback, in that game for the bulk of the contest. So the Arizona Cardinals, are they collapsing again? Everybody feels like everybody out there is like, oh, I've seen this movie before. The writing is on the wall. The Arizona Cardinals, they had their run. They went 10-2 out of the gates, and they lost it. DeAndre Hopkins is done for the year. We don't know when J.J. Watt's coming back. And the guys that are left, I don't trust them. They can't get it done. Cliff Kingsbury is the main guy that gets beat up on here because they saw his coaching record in the Big 12 at Texas Tech, fired from his alma mater, 35-40. And they think that they know, hey, this guy can't be, he can't get it done as a head coach at the NFL level. But I think Cliff Kingsbury is actually one of the top offensive play callers in the game right now. You have bad games. You have people who are getting paid on the other side of things. And not, I think Aaron Glenn pitched almost a perfect game against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday as the DC of the Detroit Lions. He really got it done. I think he was able to kind of piggyback what the Los Angeles Rams were able to do on Monday Night Football and took, what Raheem Morris was able to accomplish, and even more so on Sunday. Now it's time for the Arizona Cardinals to kind of get in on this game of chess and start to make adjustments. Because if they don't, then yeah, you are watching the same movie. But the Arizona Cardinals have way more talent in that locker room between last year and this year. And they have a lot better leadership, in my opinion. I think guys like J.J. Watt, even DeAndre Hopkins, who's not going to be able to suit up probably for the rest of the regular season, Kyler Murray in his third season, and in Cliff Kingsbury, more of a vocal guy this year as the Cardinals head coach. I don't think that he's going to let him slide. They've seen that. And the Arizona Cardinals are still a very dangerous team at 10-4. And you even look at the spread for the game on Saturday. They're a 1-point favorite over the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, the wise guys in Vegas, they're not going to discount the Arizona Cardinals just yet either, and neither should you. I mean, you look at a team that's top 10 as far as points for and points against on both offense and defense. They can play both sides of the football. They've got solid special teams with Matt Prater holding down the kicking spot, and we know what Andy Lee brings to the table as far as a punter and how they can their kick coverage skills are solid in the punting game. So I think that the Arizona Cardinals can play in all three phases of the game, and with that, and on the talent that they still have, that can play each and every week. It's not a team that's going to collapse like they did last year, where they were very top heavy. I think there's a lot more depth on this team when you still look at it. The pass rush is something that's going to need to step up. The quarterback play absolutely is going to have to be better. Kyler Murray, the last 2 games, has not been himself. And Cliff Kingsbury, as far as dialing up maybe the run a little bit more often. I mean, when you looked at how they kind of came out of the gates in the second half, where they had the very little success that they did in the 30-12 loss to the Lions, it was because they were kind of making and emphasizing running the football against the Lions, and they were successful for a little bit, and then they got away from it because the next drive, Kyler Murray and AJ Green had another miscommunication, and there was a crucial pick that pretty much sealed the deal for the Arizona Cardinals. How big was the Robert Alford loss? That was kind of a sneaky, quiet injury. He had the pec injury, and I think that Robert Alford, we'll get more into it, was a bigger piece of this defensive secondary than we actually gave him credit for. Kind of a quiet return to the playing field after missing 2 seasons. Let's get into that conversation here on Locked On Cardinals. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Bob Brack. He's the way to find me, Bo Brock. Follow the show at Locked On AZCards, and follow my co-host Alex Clancy at Clancy's Corner. Excited to tell you about Boost Mobile. Of course, we listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You want to learn something, and when you switch to Boost Mobile, you get the power of saving money as well. Get 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line. and free 5G phone when you switch. So you can get the latest episodes of all the podcasts you love, like Locked On Cardinals, Locked On NFL, Locked On Bets, and all on America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and one per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers coverage not available everywhere, but all phones and networks. That goes for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for more details. Also, got to tell you, I mean, we're less than 100 days away from Super Bowl 56. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi, less than 100 days away. And On Location is the official hospitality partner of the NFL. It's the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl experience. It's an experience package. Select your exact seats. Choose from an elite experience features featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, five-star hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck, the celebrity chef. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information or search Super Bowl On Location. That's onlocationexp.com/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location in your web browser. Bo Brock hanging out with you. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. And yeah, we're as we get here to the end of the year, it's been a huge banner year for Locked On Cardinals, and everybody out there that listens, that's the reason for it. Everybody that interacts on social media, even though it's been a little rough the last couple of days after the performance on Sunday, we appreciate everybody joining the discussion. You make this thing move, and you make this thing happen, and we're so appreciative and grateful for that, Alex and myself. Thank you so much. Thanks for the 2,000 strong people that are subscribed to the YouTube channel. That's been a great thing that's happened here in 2021, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for this team, the Arizona Cardinals, and this podcast in 2022. There is going to be playoff football, regardless of what happens the rest of the way. I mean, it's almost the odds are minuscule that the Arizona Cardinals aren't a part of the dance coming up. And I'm not going to sit here and start to hit the panic button. What's an acceptable, final record for the Arizona Cardinals over 3 games? Pretty daunting opponents. You've got a couple of the hottest teams in football, and the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys coming up, and then also the Seattle Seahawks, who've seemed to kind of figure things out as Russell Wilson gets healthier and healthier. But the Arizona Cardinals, last time they played the Seattle Seahawks, they had really not a whole lot of trouble slowing them down and beating up on them, with Colt McCoy still and at the starting quarterback position as Kyler Murray returned from injury a couple weeks ago. But speaking of injuries, the Arizona Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury spoke on Monday. He told the press that Jordan Phillips, the big defensive tackle, big beef in the middle of the Cardinals defense, he is undergoing an MRI for a knee injury, and Rondell Moore, the rookie wide receiver, is having his ankle looked at as far as an MRI as well. The team, before their game on Sunday, I think this was a sneaky big loss for the Arizona Cardinals. Robert Alford was placed on IR with a pec injury, and Alford was having a solid season. I mean, it was really under the radar for a guy who hadn't played in 2 consecutive years, was holding down that cornerback 2 spot for the Arizona Cardinals. And if you look as far as their best outside cover corners, he might be their best. We know how good Byron Murphy is in the slot and how good he is inside, but outside, Robert Alford might be your guy. We know Marco Wilson, the rookie 4th rounder, struggling the last couple games, penalties. He's had a couple touchdowns scored against him. Robert Alford was just kind of this quiet guy that held down that position. He didn't have to really think twice about him. He was just reliable, and it was a sneaky big loss for the Arizona Cardinals. He had a pick, solid in coverage. Marco Wilson is going to have to step it up, and that's going to have to be something on the fly. I don't know if this is something the Arizona Cardinals can maybe address and just kind of scour free agent waiver wire and just see if they can bring in some depth at the cornerback position. But right now, they're just going to have to move forward with Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson. Murphy, of course, a third year guy, and Wilson in his first season, he's been great. He's been solid in his first season, but what the expectations are and the pressure that are on his shoulders now to perform with Alford out the rest of the season, it's going to be huge. But we know that Wilson is solid as far as tackling. He's been a solid guy. He's not one to shy away from physicality or anything like that. So when you've got a big rushing attack and Jonathan Taylor coming to town, that's going to be interesting. But when you have to take on the Dallas Cowboys in a week, you've got CeeDee Lamb, Mari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and of course the arm of Dak Prescott. It's going to be huge for Marco Wilson to have a sound game, a solid game, and continue to progress and develop as the Arizona Cardinals are without Robert Alford. And then, Rondale Moore is interesting. He has struggled mightily and hasn't been a very productive wide receiver or playmaker for the Arizona Cardinals really since week 2. It's been a long time. There's been way too much east and west instead of north and south. But he was banged up on a return the other day. We saw Andy Isabella by the end of the Lions game. That's how things got out of hand. We saw the former second-round pick return a kick, and also I think he had his first catch of the season. But the Arizona Cardinals, without Rondale Moore, I don't know how big of a loss that is. I mean, unless it's just kind of opening up things for Christian Kirk underneath or making plays out of the slot and AJ Green. But Rondale Moore has been kind of a non-existent, non-factor for this team for far too long. So, you don't know how big of a loss that is unless he was really going to start to make an impact going forward. Jordan Phillips is a bigger loss for this team because we know how, without JJ Watt already, that this team has been struggling against the run. And anytime you take any size or any beef out of the middle of that defensive line, you're going to struggle. And Jordan Phillips was playing okay. I mean, he had a sack against Detroit, but I think if he misses any significant time with the knee injury, Arizona Cardinals could be in even more trouble. I mean, you'd hate to see him miss this week against the Colts. They're going to have all hands on deck against a hot team coming into town on Christmas. What's an acceptable finish over the final 3 games for this Arizona Cardinals team? 10-4, 10-2 out of the gates. Over the last 6 games, they're 3-3. So they're struggling a little bit. Not a lot of people are giving them any credit or any ability to finish strong against the opponents that they have to face. And I've run through them, and we'll get into that. What is an acceptable finish for this Arizona Cardinals team? While a lot of people are starting to say, hey, they could go 0-3, and that's a nightmare scenario. So what's acceptable? Let's get into that conversation here on Locked On Cardinals before we get out of here. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at Locked On AZCards. You're subscribed to of course, our YouTube page. And of course, follow me at Bob Brack on Twitter on the Bird. BetOnline has you covered all season long. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. And as the football season continues the march to the playoffs, it's a great time to get in on the action. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your sports action this season. Head over to their new updated desktop mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus. You put in $100, you get $50 for free to play around with. If you win, you get to keep that cash. Just use the promo code Locked On. One word, Locked On, to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline has the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Bo Brock, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy will rejoin this podcast tomorrow, our Wednesday episode. We're getting into the debate about Cliff Kingsbury, which I think is absurd to have at this point. He's 10-4. The Arizona Cardinals have improved each and every season, wins and offensively each and every year. That's what you brought Cliff Kingsbury in to do. I don't know what, I think you kind of sound like an SEC football fan if your expectations then are perfection. You wanted Cliff Kingsbury to come in and do something that nobody really could do. So what I'm curious to hear is if Alex really wants if he thinks Cliff Kingsbury needs to be kicked to the curb because of one loss to the worst team in football, record-wise, in the Detroit Lions, what's your other option? Who are you gonna bring in? Who's gonna be ready to go to take this team to the next level? And if that doesn't happen, then who's held accountable at that point? Is it Kyler Murray? Is it all the rest of the players in the locker room? It's just I don't understand it that you go 10-4 and you improve each and every year, but that's not good enough. I mean, you have to go from 2018. It was one of the worst constructed rosters in the NFL, in the decade. From 2010 to 2020, 2018 Arizona Cardinals were one of the worst rosters in the league. To go from 2018 to where they are right now, I mean, it's improvement, and they're on the rise, and this is a team that continues to take each and every step along the way to becoming a solid football team. 10-4, and you want to fire the coach, who's one of the more talented play callers in the league and has proven so. There's been some struggles. Obviously, Detroit was brutal. The Arizona Cardinals, as far as their red zone, it's something that needs to be fixed. I saw a couple stats that the third time since 1970 where the team with the worst record in the NFL beat the team with the best record, including ties, and it was a minimum 8 games each. And it happened twice before: the '95 Cowboys and the 2004 Patriots. And if you're a history buff, you'll know that each of those teams went on to win a Super Bowl that season. So, I think when you have talented rosters, the Arizona Cardinals certainly have a talented roster, and you have a wake up call like they sustained on Sunday against the Lions, it could be very useful. It can be very constructive. But the Arizona Cardinals, as far as where they can start to kind of fix and right this ship, they scored 2 touchdowns on their last 8 red zone trips. That's just not good enough, especially when you have a quarterback with the talent and the skill set that Kyler Murray has. You have James Conner, who going into Detroit, he had scored a touchdown in 7 consecutive games, and they seem to have gotten away from that. And Murray has 1 passing touchdown, no rushing touchdowns, and 3 picks over his last 2 games. He's also been sacked 6 times, and we've seen him miss some pretty makeable throws. I think that Kyler Murray, he needs to kind of refocus himself in order. I mean, that's huge for this team going forward. And when we look at the next 3 games, it's Indy, who's coming in at 8-6 after just a brutal start. What were they, 1-5? And then you have the Dallas Cowboys with an identical record as the Arizona Cardinals at 10-4. And then you have the surging Seattle Seahawks. What's an acceptable, finish for this Arizona Cardinals team? Um, you know, some would say if you can get one of those games and you push your record to 11-6 to finish out the season, yeah, obviously that would clinch a playoff spot, no problem. Um, I think you need to go 2-1. Because I think that would really have people pump the brakes on this team uh, being just a sequel to last season. And 2-1, you would beat either Indy and Seattle or Dallas and Seattle or Indy and Dallas or Dallas and Seattle. There's a couple different combinations there, but I think that would have people kind of regain confidence in this team, and they've done it before. When they went from San Francisco and they blew the doors off the Niners to sweep the season series there, and the Niners, by the way, are a solid football team. They've seemed to figure it out, but the Arizona Cardinals, they made easy work of them the second time around. But they don't get any credit for it. But the Arizona Cardinals, they fell short. They had a horrible performance against the Carolina Panthers, and they were able to refocus themselves for a big win against Seattle the next week. They didn't have any kind of trouble beating up on the Seahawks. They win 23-13 on the road. I think Seattle is a game that they absolutely should win, despite Seattle kind of figuring it out. And then I think Dallas, Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs are playing great on the defensive side of the football, but there's still holes on that defense and that offense. Hopefully they don't start to figure it out too much before January 2nd. But Saturday is going to be key. Arizona Cardinals can really shut a lot of people up Saturday because they think they know what they see with this Colts team. They can say, hey, that's one of the hottest teams in football. The Arizona Cardinals can put the brakes on the Colts and their little streak or run here. The Arizona Cardinals can certainly regain some confidence from their fan base and a lot of the doubters out there the rest of the way. Maybe one of their doubters is Alex Clancy. And yeah, I think it would certainly kind of ease and calm him down because he wants to freak out every time that they struggle and fire the coach Cliff Kingsbury. But the Arizona Cardinals, big game coming up on Christmas against the Colts, 6:15 kickoff here in the desert. Can't wait for it. I think it's going to be a great game. I really do. it's, the Colts do have strengths where the Cardinals have weaknesses, and that just sets up but the Colts are not a perfect team. They've struggled. They've had some ugly losses this season, and the Arizona Cardinals certainly they should win the game at home. It can fix a couple things. One, that they've lost back-to-back games. It can put an end to that, not have a losing skid of 3 in a row, and also that the team can start to beat good teams at home, something that they really haven't done in 2021. All the success on the road, and we saw that end against the Lions. They had suffered their first road loss, but you know you've got Indy that just beat New England, but they lost to Tampa, they've lost to Tennessee, they lost to Baltimore, they've lost to Seattle. They've lost quite a few games this. I mean, they've lost 6 games. They're certainly susceptible, and they're you know they can lose this game on the road on Christmas. The Arizona Cardinals just need to do a couple of key things, and one of them is tough. It's slowing down Jonathan Taylor. How they can do that, we'll get into that conversation as we start to turn the page on the Lions loss and look forward to the Arizona Cardinals game coming up against the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk to Evan Sidery of Locked On Colts. Make sure you'll follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On AZCards. Follow me, Bo Brock, at Bob Brack. Follow my co-host Alex Clancy at Clancy's Corner. And of course, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube page. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to you Wednesday on Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network.